This week on the Analog Circle podcast, PlayStation has a patent that could change gaming yet again when it comes to their controller. Game Pass has increased in price yet again. God, dog. Oh my gracious. An old school beat 'em up is making a return. And let me give you a hint. It is a blue and red character. And 2K Games are working on a remake. What could this remake possibly be? Well, we will definitely discuss. But all of these stories can be found here and more in episode 216 of the Analog Circle podcast. I am your host, Kiaun Mitchell, and welcome to the show. Welcome. Come on in, sit down, kick off your shoes, and relax. Now, as always, before we officially get started into the episode, if you do want to be a part of the next listener feedback episode, which has been in the works for almost 2 months now, shout out to you, Cody Clark. But if you do want to be a part of it, you can do it one way. And that is by emailing the show, and the email address is simply the Analog Circle Podcast at gmail.com. Do not call the old phone number. That phone number has been disconnected. So you won't be reaching me. You'll be reaching somebody else. But as soon as we get a new number, I'll be sure to give it to you guys so you can call in and leave your thoughts. Now, with that being said, let's go ahead and let's get into what we all come here for. And that is no other than the gaming news that went down. So let's go ahead and let's get things started with a story that has been updated. Now, I actually got this story from Game Rant. Now, some of you may remember back in, I would say it was the spring of 2023, Sony had secured a patent that would essentially make a DualSense controller have the capability of switching between a hot and cold temperature depending on what's going on the screen. Yes, you heard me. A controller that can switch from cold to hot or hot to cold depending on what's happening on the screen. Well, since then, Sony has secured another similar patent just this month. We're in July, just for, just as a reference for someone listening to this at a later date. But this patent goes into a little more detail on how this new technology could work. Now, the documentation was reviewed by Game Rant, and it describes a controller that can change the temperature of its shoulder buttons, specifically the L2 and R2 buttons. The newly publicized solution is only intended to send a brief thermal sensation whose intervals wouldn't be much longer than vibrations generated by the DualSense haptic feedback motors. Now, the concept gamepad shoulder buttons would hence cool down shortly after heating up, and vice versa. Now, this is the thing. Can you imagine in the next generation? I mean, PlayStation is already, pardon me, let me turn this off. Unprofessional Productions has yet reared its ugly head yet again. Let me cut that down. But could you imagine next generation? We get a controller, because already we've seen what the DualSense controller is capable of doing with the L2 and R2 buttons. When it tightens up, it tenses up in certain instances, whether it be you pulling back on a bow and arrow. In 2K, I've never played 2K, but in certain instances, when you're shooting the ball, it tightens up. That's what I've been told. But in like Call of Duty, feeling the vibrations from the gunfire, pop, 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 pop. And I mean, you don't need to go any further than Astrobot, where you can understand the complete landscape of what that controller is capable of doing. It has changed gaming so much They've done so much more with their controller than Xbox has, or anybody for that matter. I'm not going to say Nintendo too much, because Nintendo has innovated in several different ways over the last couple of generations. You know, we don't need to go into their analog sticks, the rumble technology, all of that stuff. But it seems like PlayStation, they are making their mark as well with their controller when it comes down to the DualSense being very different than any other controller that we have had thus far. And then you talk about next generation with the L2 button, the R2 button actually being able to switch from hot to cold, depending on the environment, depending on what's going on the screen. This is sensational. This is absolutely amazing. The only thing, I'm going to tell y'all this, the only thing that would make me happier than having the L2, R2 buttons actually be able to switch from hot to cold, and hopefully they'll be able to also keep, the L2, R2 buttons, the same when it comes to the tension being inside of them. But the only other thing that I would love to see somebody do, and I don't know what this would do to the battery, I don't know how much it would make the controller cost if they did this, but I would love to see that same technology that we get with the L2 button and the R2 button, put that on the analog sticks themselves. To be able to, if you're going through sand, it's harder to move the analog sticks. If you're actually going on ice, it makes the controller a little more slippery, the analog sticks, kind of trying to find a fine-tuned balance when it comes to something like that. I would absolutely love to see that. I've mentioned that time and time again. I've mentioned them doing the hot and cold situation a couple of years ago. It's great to see that they have this patent out there. Now, of course, it's one thing that does need to be noted, is that just because any company, doesn't matter if it's Sony or whoever, if they do a patent, if they put a patent out there, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to come to market. So I don't want to jump the gun and say that this is definitely happening with the PlayStation 6, but I will say that due to their trajectory of them actually trying to push gaming forward when it comes to the controller, I would say that it is a very, very good possibility that this happens. I wonder would any of y'all really like this to be a reality, having the hot and cold situation? Because I find it so interesting when I read certain articles or see different YouTube videos where people say that they don't prefer to have the PlayStation 5's haptics on when it comes to the triggers or even the rumble technology that we've had for years. They just rather have a vanilla experience, as it were, when it comes to it. They don't want any features on. And to me, I've always said, well, that's what gaming is about. You're supposed to want something different, something new, to actually help you to really get that immersion going on. And it's nothing better than playing Astro Bot, and you are shooting that gun and you feel that trigger just oh my gosh, it's amazing. It's absolutely incredible. So I'm just curious, I know it's kind of corny to ask the question, hey, would you guys like this or not? But I'm really, really curious if that was a new feature that was to be on the new PlayStation controller, having it switch from hot to cold. Would that be something you guys would be interested in? Because I am sold. I'm absolutely sold. If it's $100 controller, golly, would that be something I would pay for? I'm gonna tell you, if you get a Sobe on that joint and they show me exactly what that controller is able to do with the hot and cold settings, because those guys, man, shout out to them. God dog, a Sobe, I got to give them a round of applause. Golly, these guys, I'm going to tell you something. On a side note, just talking about a Sobe just for a minute, these guys are going to mess around and put Mario on notice. Oh, I said it. Oh, I absolutely said it. They going to mess around. Astro Bot is going to be the platformer of choice. That's how much confidence I have in them. If you have played that Astrobot, I don't want to call it a demo. Well, I guess technically it is. The tech demo that comes with every PlayStation 5. You cannot say that platforming and that gameplay and the graphics, man, it is top tier entertainment when it comes to gaming. And I am saying to myself, man, these guys over at Asobi, they have a chance of, really going at it. I'm talking mano y mano when it comes to Mario. That's how great this Astrobot game is. And now that they're making a full-fledged game, the previews have been coming out and people have been just gushing all over it, saying how much they have enjoyed it, how much fun it is, how beautiful the game is, how just very different the level design is. They have just been saying so many great things. I'm willing to say, listen, I'm willing to put myself out there on a limb and say that Astrobot is going to be up for Game of the Year this year. Bare minimum, absolutely bare minimum. I feel like they're going to be at least in the talk for possibly Platformer of the Year or something like that. Family Game of the Year. That game is going to get nominated and win something this year. That's how much confidence I have in Asobi. So you talk about them getting their hands on this new controller that could happen, this hot and cold controller, and showing exactly what it can do. I just very might well be willing to spend $100 on this controller. And what I mean by spending the $100, we all know that the controller is going to come with the console. But if something is to happen or were to happen to the controller, would I begrudgingly, spend the $100 if that's how much it would cost and be like, God, dog, this ain't worth it? I don't think so. Because with Asobi on the job, I think, they would definitely show off what this controller can do in all of its all of its capacity of what it's capable of doing. But we will see eventually if this controller is real or if it is just another patent. Let's go ahead, guys, though, and let's move on into the next story. And I actually got this next story from Fedra Life. So this is just in quick news. So in quick news, Star Wars Outlaws has gone gold. It's gone gold. Ho! The game has gone gold and it will release, if you guys weren't aware, on August 30th. But this is the thing. If you buy the gold edition or the ultimate edition, you will be able to get access to the game 3 days early. And just to give some story context about the game, it's set between episodes 5 and 6 of the saga in the original trilogy. Now, this is another game that is being previewed over at IGN. A couple of other websites have picked up on this game as well in the preview stage, and it has been sounding quite nice. It's been sounding pretty good. I mean, it was one insert I had read where they were talking about one of the planets. It was a bit of a mixture of information because one of the planets was bigger than 2 or 3 of the sections in one of the Assassin's Creeds. Then I read in another article where it took like 4 minutes to get across one planet, from one side to the other when you're on the speeder bike. So it has been definitely quite a few different reports when it comes down to the size of the game, but it seems like they have done a very, very good job. I mean, of course, only time will tell. Once we get our hands on the game, we'll be able to judge it for ourselves. But the more I read about the game, the more it excites me. I'm very, very much so excited about this Ubisoft game and what it has to offer. I mean, I've been on this game since last year when it was shown off at E3. I've said it then and I'll say it now. I'll stand by it. I believe Ubisoft has one on their hands when it comes to Star Wars Outlaws. And then they were talking about the upgrading system where you don't necessarily level up your character. You actually have to go to different characters, seek them out to actually get the skill that you are looking for. So I thought that was a little interesting as well. I believe they said the game was going to be, we had read off the numbers, like 30 hours if you're going straight through the game. But if you're doing some side missions or whatever, it could take it up to 45, somewhere around there. I can't quite remember the numbers verbatim, but nonetheless, this game is definitely one that I'm getting on day one. Anything that I'm playing, I'm dropping it. I'm still, by the way, just on the side note, still playing Ghost of Tsushima. I got 30 plus hours in that game. That game still remains hard as ever. I went on a special quest to get this doggone suit, and it was supposed to help me to be able to fight these enemies and stop them from tearing me up. I'm still one shot, one slice of the sword, half of my energy is still gone. So that I don't know what the heck that suit was supposed to do, but it ain't doing its doggone job. But anyway, back to Star Wars Outlaws. Again, this game is coming out on August 30th. It's sounding very, very good. Again, if you want to get that 3-day early access, you got to either buy the Gold Edition or the Ultimate Edition to be able to get that. Also, speaking of Ubisoft, man, I butchered the heck out of that Assassin's Creed Mirage. I kept calling that joker Mirage. God, dog, reading is fundamental. I said, man, after I had listened back to it, I said, wait, God, dog, go on a minute. I don't think that is the name of the joint. And no, it was not. It was definitely doggone Assassin's Creed Mirage, and I'm calling that joker Mirage.
You big dummy.
I'm telling you. God, dog, I've totally butchered that. But anyway, it's Mirage and all of that good stuff. Yeah, I have said it there enough. Let's go ahead, though, and let's move on to the next story. And I was just talking about these guys, but I got this next story from IGN. So, over the last several weeks since its initial release, we haven't been able to get concrete numbers when it has come down to how well Hellblade 2 has sold. Well, of course, you knew eventually we would find out. And according to Circana's most up-to-date sales data, we have the numbers courtesy of analyst Matt Piscatella, who took to X to say, and I quote, "Getting a lot of questions on this one. Senua's Saga Hellblade 2 ranked 37th overall for May 2024 in US. Full game dollar sales, physical plus digital for sharing pubs, while ranking 21st on Xbox Series." End of quote. Also, one other thing to note is the game was ranked 12th on Xbox in terms of monthly active users. So, finally, ranked number 37. Now, some people could say, and again, this is for dollars, for the dollar amount. Once again, let me read it again. Quote, "Getting a lot of questions on this one. Senua's Saga Hellblade 2 ranked 37th overall for May 2024 in US full game dollar sales." So that, to me, that is a bit of a different picture than I thought the game was gonna actually be at that time in May. Because I believe somebody at one point in time said that the game didn't even reach the top 100 at that point in time. But yet we see Matt Piscatella is saying that the game actually ranked 37th when it came to making money. So to me, some people would say that that is a L, that is a loss, that is a bad number. I don't want to say necessarily it's a bad number. I would say, though, I would have thought that the game possibly would have ranked higher. But thinking about it realistically, it is in Game Pass. It's not going to be a game that everybody's going to be interested in. It's not one of those games that they heavily marketed to the masses, to anybody that's outside of the hardcore group like us. Many people just don't know what the game is. Is that a real valid excuse? Well, I can say you only know what you know. You know, I'm sure there are many different things out there in other industries, like the car industry, maybe the art industry or something that I just don't follow, that to people that are into that culture, they would look at me and say, you don't know about the new Hemi 6.5. I mean, I'm just making up numbers, and I'd be like, no, I don't know. And they'd be like, man, you got to be kidding me. This thing has been around and in the works for 2 or 3 years. It's one of the biggest things happening in the car industry. And I'll just be looking at them like, I have no idea. So I look at, a game like Hellblade 2 the same way. Unless you're really into the gaming culture, this is something that you really follow, you're not really gonna necessarily know what this game is. So with all of that being said, being ranked number 37, 37th, I would have loved for it to have been a lot higher up on the list as far as like top 5 or top 10, something like that. But I just think for a game like this, that is just unrealistic. So I will say that the game didn't do nearly as bad as I thought it would do, or as bad, not as bad as I thought it would do. I thought it would have done much better than this. But thinking about the kind of game it is, knowing that it's on Game Pass, it's not the kind of game for everybody. Yeah, it did what it did. And, it unfortunately is what it is. I'm not going to boo it, but we'll see what happens. Long as they don't shut down the studio, I'll be happy with that. Give them one more chance, see what they can do, with something else. And, that Project Mara or whatever the next thing is going to be that they're going to be working on, let them cook with that, and let's see what the numbers do then, and advertise it. Give them a fighting chance, Microsoft. Oh, God. So, again, 37th is what this game ranked. We'll see what happens, with Ninja Theory in the upcoming months, and see what they're actually able to do and where they're going to go from here. And again, I got to put this out there again, put a little more emphasis on the other positive side to this. Again, it says the game was ranked 12th on Xbox in terms of monthly active users. So that's actually not bad. That's not bad. Being ranked 12, hey, you got to start somewhere. Now that they're out there, we'll see what happens. But let's go ahead, guys, and let's get into the next story. So I got this next story from Xbox Achievements. So about 2 weeks, I believe it was about 2 weeks or so, we saw Capcom yet again. Oh, these jokers right here. They were back in their remake bag yet again with Dead Rising Remastered. Darn, that joint looks good. That joint look real good. I will be picking that up. Oh, man. So now that game originally came out on Xbox 360. But you know what else came out on that console? Of course, it was one of the OGs of that era that made a huge presence on the 360, and that was no other than BioShock. Now, you may be saying, how does Dead Rising and BioShock have a connection with each other? Well, based off of a LinkedIn page of a motion capture animator, he has spilled the beans by listing 2 unannounced 2K games, including a sports title and an unannounced upcoming remake, which I'm guessing could be BioShock. Now, as far as the sports title goes, I'd say that's probably the football game that we heard of a few years ago. Because do you guys remember, I don't know, this had to be about 2, maybe 3, it had to be 3 years ago, because it was during the time when I was recording before I had my 2-year hiatus. But it was this this thing that was put in place where they were saying between EA and someone else, they could actually use the NFL license, but they couldn't, no, they could use the players, but they couldn't use like the different stadiums or any of the logos from any of the real NFL teams, but they could use actual players. So this actually happened. Just to give a little more context, this and NCAA football making a comeback. Both of these stories came out around the same time. So we see that NCAA football is back now. It will be going on sale, I believe, sometime either late this month or next month. So that's officially about to release. And I'm taking it that when they talk about these remakes or something like that, this is probably going to have something to do with NFL, or not NFL necessarily, but a football game when it comes to 2K. So, of course, to me, 2K always had the best football game, which is why EA was running scared and bought up the license after they saw how amazing 2K5 was. Man, when they had Boomer reading off the stats at halftime, showing off the actual replays during that halftime segment, I said, God, dog. These guys are on a whole different level when it comes to presentation versus Madden. And EA got scared. They knew they couldn't compete. So they went and bought up the whole doggone NFL license. I believe they tried to do it with the NBA, but the NBA said, nah, bump that. You got to compete. And we see exactly what happened with Live versus NBA 2K. Now, some people would like for Live to come back. And I'm of the same mindset. You need competition in every single space. Nobody, no company should have a monopoly in anything, because competition always makes for a better product. So we'll see what happens with that in the future. But hopefully this does mean that a NFL, I keep saying NFL, but a football game is coming back from 2K. I would absolutely love it. The last 2K game I got, it wasn't even called 2K. I think it was called AFL. And it had like some of the older guys like Johnny Unitas, Joe Montana, and a couple of other guys from the old school. And that joint was hard. That game was so dope. I still have that game to this day. I still have that game. Jerry Rice was in the game. Joint was dope. So even if they went along those lines, just getting some actual real name NFL players. I mean, of course, they don't have to be of that generation. You could get some guys that have retired already, get like Ray Lewis up in there. He's no longer playing. You could get, just some guys that are of, the last 15 to 20 years. You ain't got to go back to the 50s and the 80s. That's what I would hope they would do. But we'll see what happens with this. But again, talking about the other remake, thinking about BioShock, it could definitely be BioShock. That could be another game that they could be working on outside of the sports title. But some of the other games that are under the 2K banner, they could get this treatment. Is also Mafia is under the 2K banner. Now, they've already made Mafia 1 remake. They haven't made Mafia 2 as a remake. They made it more as a remaster. But if they were to remake it, I would definitely buy it, because I did not play that one. So, yeah, if they were to do that, I would be game. But another game that, if I'm not mistaken, is The Darkness. Now, do y'all remember The Darkness back during the 360 era? Man, that joker right there. Golly, I mean, it was dark. It was definitely adult themed. That game was dope. I really, really enjoyed that game so doggone much. So if they were to be doing a remake of The Darkness, that would be another game I would be down for. Hopefully that's the case. They also have Borderlands as well. Of course, we know the movie is coming out, or it may be out already. That could be something they could be working on. Borderlands, that's not really my type of game. I've tried it before. Couldn't really get into it. I know it has a bazillion guns and all of that stuff, but that game didn't move me too much. But this could be one of the games that they could be working on. And another game that is not so popular, this under the 2K banner, that they could have as well, is a game called, and this was during the 360 era, I believe, as well. Yeah, it was definitely 360. It might have been Xbox One. Might have been the Xbox One era. But it was called Evolve. You guys remember that game? Oh, wait. That was one that had potential. From what I understood, I think it was one person was the monster, four other people were like soldiers trying to take the monster down. Now, of course, y'all know I don't play online games like that, but this was one that I actually tried. I tried it out and I was like, yeah, this ain't for me. Online gaming just isn't my deal. I just want a storyline, a story to follow, and, just a campaign to get through. I want a game to have a start, a middle, and an ending, so that's why online games for me really don't appeal to a gamer like me. But for somebody else might have really enjoyed Evolve and would love to see it make a comeback. But we will see what happens with this. But also it's another game that I believe is under their banner as well. And this could definitely go into a different direction. And that would be a game that a lot of people enjoyed. I didn't get a chance to play it, and the ending got spoiled for me, unfortunately, which was, and I'm not going to spoil it here, but that was the kick that really made the game special, was that ending. And that's Spec Ops: The Line. Which I believe at this point in time has actually been delisted. So you can't even play it. So, you get a game like that, give that a remake. I would probably pick that up eventually. It wouldn't be a game I'd be rushing out to get because I know what the ending is, unfortunately. But that could be something that could happen as well. So we have all of these games that fall under the 2K banner: Mafia: The Darkness, Borderlands, Evolve, and Spec Ops. One of these could be getting a remake. And to me, the not necessarily the bigger story, because I'm always into, these types of games outside of Borderlands and Evolve, but any game that, again, has a campaign to it, I'm always game for that more than a sports game, strategy game, online game, whatever the case may be. But for me personally, because I've been waiting for it for so long, I'm hoping that we get this football game from 2K eventually. So I'll be on the lookout. We'll all be on the lookout, and we will follow this story as it unfolds over the next couple days, weeks, months. Hopefully not years, but it is a possibility that it could be a couple of years. We will see. But let's go ahead, guys, and let's get into the next story, which I actually got from The Verge. So I think, oh man, this is a story that wasn't nobody too happy about. But I think ever since the ABK deal went through, we all knew Game Pass's price point, it would eventually change sooner than later. And, well, that's exactly what has happened. So, by the way, any of you who are Game Pass Ultimate subscribers, be on the lookout for an email coming your way from Xbox to notify you of the price increase. But we're going to talk about it right now. So, as far as the increase goes, Ultimate will go from $16.99 to $19.99, a $3 increase. Also, PC Game Pass is going from $9.99 to $11.99. Now, this increase will kick in on September 12th. Now, if that $3 increase is too much, and I do mean that, because in today's time, listen, it is just me and my wife. and our grocery bill is like $170, $180. It is outrageous. We're spending almost $200 for a week's worth of food. And I know I'm not the only one out there. So when I talk about that $3 increase being a bit of an inconvenience or too much, I really mean that. But again, getting back to it, if that $3 increase is too much for you, you will have another option, which is called Xbox Game Pass Standard subscription, which will be priced at $14.99. But this tier, and this is a bit of a slap in the darn face, this tier does not include day one titles.
Move this man!
How are you going to talk about a service that prides itself on day one titles, but get a tier that's $15 that doesn't give you day one titles? Now, this is the thing. You won't get access to day one titles, but it will give you access to online, which is, anybody that wants to play, shoot, online. Now, in addition to all of these things existing, Xbox Game Pass for console subscribers will only be able to stack for up to 13 months from September 18th. But if you have existing stacks, this won't impact them thus far. Let's talk about this. Now, we'll discuss this a little deeper because I believe this is going to be the question of the week. This is where it's going to stem from. But I just don't know, man. $20. The thing, now listen, I'm not going to get on here and act all fake outraged or anything like that. But I will say, though, the one thing that does make me really raise an eyebrow at this situation is, if I'm not mistaken, Phil Spencer or Sarah Bond or Matt Booth, somebody came out there and said the Game Pass would not increase due to them getting ABK. If they got ABK, Game Pass would stay the same price. Now, that's the thing where I'm just like, you can't defend that. You can't defend that at all. I think it was a VGC article that was brought up that actually brought that up, where they said that wouldn't be the case. And you're talking about going on a year later, not even a year after they've acquired it. Now you're talking about that the price is going up $3. So this is the thing. Instead of me just saying, what the world? Because quite honestly, this doesn't affect me at all. As soon as I get a Series X, I'm not getting Game Pass. I'm not buying it. I'm not going to get it. I'm not going to subscribe. It's not for me. I would much rather buy my games outright. That way I have them. I own them. Well, I know somebody's going to be out there and say, well, you don't technically own your game, Kiaun. Yeah, I get it. I know. But I don't need a online service to actually access my game that I buy either. So I buy it outright. That's the way I like to buy my games. Now, so I'm not going to get up here and say, I can't believe this. I mean, I can believe it. I think that's a little shady, thinking about it from the standpoint of you had made a point to say that you weren't going to raise the price of Game Pass, as soon as you guys get ABK. But now that you got them, we got to kind of raise that price up. That's the part that, just makes me say, wow, that's bad optics right there. And then you're talking about a service, again, where you pride yourself on having games there, day and date, for people to be able to play. But yet you have a tier that is $14.99. And on that tier of, quote, Game Pass, you don't get games day and date. You only get online access. And I mean, you will have, now let's not blow this thing out of proportion. You will have access to some of those games. I'm sure games like State of Decay, 2 and possibly Halo, the latest Halo that just came out. Probably Starfield will probably be in there because that game is going on like a year old now. Games like that. I'm sure you'll have access to games that have been in there for, a year plus or close to a year. But if you're talking about getting a game like Indiana Jones, or you're talking about a game like Avowed, probably not even Hellblade 2, you'll probably get that in the service because those games are just either months old or they haven't even been released yet. So those are games that you will not have access to. And that was the thing that was interesting. They never told, what games would be available on that tier. Like, do the games have to be 6 months old, 9 months old, a year old, and then you'll get access? They just kind of left that, as far as I read, they left that detail out. And I know it's a minor detail, but it is important because you want people to know that, look, you're paying this $15 and this is exactly what you're going to get, access to. So, I mean, overall, we all know that things are getting more and more expensive. Doesn't mean we got to like it. I mean, one thing is for sure is if people don't buy it, they will fold and they will retract on the price point. That's the thing I don't understand with some people. Instead of going out there doing riots, out there, marching around the actual premises of a place or something like that, I'm like, man, if you don't want it, if you don't like it, just don't buy it. Because at the end of the day, that's all these companies care about. They just want our money. And if we're not giving them our money, they're not getting the results that they want to meet their bottom line, they will fold. They will crumble. I think it was a report that came out. It would take for like $1 billion company or multi-million, I'm talking millions upon millions of dollars of a company. If people didn't buy like any products from that company for like a year and a half, almost 2 years, somewhere around there, it would completely decimate their business. If absolutely zero people in the population of humandom didn't go out and buy anything from them for like 2 years, it might have been for like $1 billion company. It might have been like 3 years, but it didn't take long at all for people to actually just completely crumble a business, where they would be non-existent if nobody bought their stuff. So I do understand that sometimes, protesting is a very, very good approach. And in some ways, you have to start up a petition to get certain things going in order to get, certain situations, get a radar on it or get it on the radar, as it were. But some things are just as simple as don't buy it. And to me, this Game Pass situation, instead of some people, and to be fair, I don't really see too many people like up in arms and mad about it. And, that fake outrage that so many people like to do. I don't really see that too much with this. But of course, there is going to always be a subset of people that just say, I can't believe this is happening. Why are you doing this? If you don't like it, you don't want it, just completely stop supporting it. If that $20 is way too much, instead of starting a petition, just go to some of your friends, go to social media and say, hey, can we all band together to agree that nobody will buy this particular thing? And I'm not even just singling out Game Pass. I'm just talking about in general, whatever it is, whatever industry. Let's just get together and not buy any darn thing. Whether it's Nike, Adidas, whoever. And let's just really send a message, because that's the only message that matters. Is no money coming in. No money is coming in. Believe me, they will come crawling back. I'm sorry. Please, whatever you want. What do you need us to do? So we'll see though, man. We'll talk about this a little bit later towards the, it's going to be at the end of the show. We'll get into a little bit more detail about this conversation, but, as it stands right now, let me make sure that I got the date right. It's going to be in September. September, is it the 18th that I said it's going to officially go up? It's going to go up, let's see, 1999. Yeah, September 18th. That's when it's going to officially go up. But we'll discuss this again, like I said, at the back of the show. But let's go ahead, guys, and let's get into the next story, which I also got from IGN. So if you're around my age, oh man, and I'm 45, brothers and sisters, I'm getting up there. Been gaming for quite some time out here. But if you are around my age and you have, like I said, been in these gaming streets since the 80s, like myself, there is no doubt that Double Dragon, back when we were coming up, that game rang bells in the doggone gaming streets, with the main character, Billy and Jimmy Lee, man, in red and blue, god dog, all uniformed together in this game. Now, if I'm not mistaken, Billy and Jimmy Lee, they were the pioneers of the 2D beat 'em up genre. Now, hold on. Now before, because let's fact check. I don't want to give y'all false information, but to me, man, Billy and Jimmy, those two jokers, man, I don't think I remember a beat 'em up before Double Dragon. But let's go ahead and let's just make sure. Let's see what we can find to see if I can back up these claims. Was Double Dragon the first beat 'em up?
According to Wikipedia, Double Dragon was one of the first successful beat-em-up games, becoming Japan's third highest-grossing table arcade game of 1987 before becoming America's highest-grossing dedicated arcade game for 2 years in a row, in 1988 and 1989.
God, dog, shout out to Double Dragon. Damn! Wow! So it was one of the first. Man, it dominated 2 years in a row from 1988 to 89. Golly, 88 was a heck of a year. But anyway, what am I talking about when it comes to Double Dragon? It looks like courtesy of Dragon Ball Fighter Z and Guilty Gear game developer Arc System Works, a 3D revival is in the works, and this info came from ex-user HD Kiaun. His name is spelled Kirin. Hopefully I'm saying it right and I ain't doing a marriage situation again. But HD Kirin, who said, this was his quote. He said, quote, "A first look at Double Dragon Revive announced at this week's issue of Famitsu, a new 3D Double Dragon coming to PS5, PS4, Xbox Series, it says Xbox Series, Xbox One, and PC, coming in 2025, end of quote. And inside of his post, he had actual pictures of the game, which the game looked pretty good. The art style, to me, it kind of reminded me just a little bit of Fist of the North Star Lost Paradise. But this is a trailer. Good grief. Get it out, Kiaun. This is a trailer you can actually look at online. You just type in Double Dragon Revive. And man, matter of fact, Shugs, you know how I like to do, man. Let's see if we can find it. And we might not be able to look at it necessarily together because y'all will be hearing it. But I'm going to pull it up real quick so y'all can at least hear it. Here we go. Yeah, we're going to play this live on the show. Here we go. Double Dragon. Yeah, Revive trailer. Here we go. Here it is. Here it is, guys. Man, look at that. Man, these jokers is beefing, man. classic music. Man, they got bats and whatnot. Man, they get ready to get him. Double Dragon Revive coming out 2025. God, dog. Yes, sir. That is definitely a game I am bare minimum interested in. And it coming from Arc Systems. It's one thing about those Dragon Ball games. Now, I'm not going to sit up here and act like I've played them because I have. You know, fighting games, that's also another genre I'm a little iffy on. You know, outside of Marvel versus Capcom. For some reason, Marvel versus Capcom, god darn. That game really touches a nerve with me in a good way. Kind of touches my heart just a little bit. That's why I was so excited when I saw that doggone collection, you know, coming to the Switch of the Street. I'm about to say the Street Fighter, Marvel versus Capcom games. That joint looked amazing. So, but anyway, getting back to this, god dog, I'm all over the place. But, the thing about it is that, you know, this game coming out, it really, it excites me. Yeah, like I was saying, Arc Systems, that's where I was going. The thing about them is they have a lot of flash with those Dragon Ball Z games, man. They really look like the anime, you know, and they, you know, doing all of that stuff and whatnot. Cause I never really got into Dragon Ball Z like that. That wasn't really the anime was cool, but I was more into, you know, animes like Akira, Fist of the North Star, Riding Bean, 8-Man. I mean, I'm talking about some old school jokers, brother. Ninja Scroll, one of my favorite movies, well, one of my favorite animes of all time. Doggone it, man. Anyway, I don't want to go on an anime tyrant right now, god dog. But I do love that they make it like real flashy. So I'm hoping that they'll be able to kind of take that element and put it into this Double Dragon game, because we know Double Dragon has had a couple of you know, some games over the last couple of years. They just haven't really hit like that. You know, not like Streets of Rage 4 on that level. Oh my gosh. Streets of Rage 4, man. Whew, when I heard that music, similar to this Double Dragon situation, it's like certain soundtracks and music that take you right back to where you were when you first heard them. And I know we're talking about Double Dragon, but Streets of Rage is also a beat 'em up. You know, shout out to Streets of Rage. Shout out to Sega for making a classic too, god dog it. Oh my goodness. But it's something about that music. You know, when I heard it in Streets of Rage 4, I ain't gonna make a fool of myself, you know, trying to hum the doggone sound, but y'all know what I'm talking about. It just brings back a piece of nostalgia, man. It warms my heart so doggone much. It gets me so excited. So, you know, for me, hearing that music, you know, more up to date music from Double Dragon, and seeing it, you know, Jimmy and Billy, you know, together in red and blue, you know, I'm just like, man, oh man, I'm really hoping that this game is really, really good. I'm hoping so. I have high hopes. I believe the game is in very, very good hands. You know, being Arc System Works being behind it. And this is something that I'm really looking forward to seeing next year. Hopefully this Double Dragon will be their moment, you know, Double Dragon's moment, like Streets of Rage 4, you know, was for Streets of Rage. You know, it just kind of gives you that feel like, oh my gosh, feel like I'm home again, you know, like Ninja Turtles, the newest Ninja Turtles, you know, Shredder's Revenge. I bought that and I played it. It was cool. It was good. I mean, it was good. I beat the game, but it just didn't give me quite that same feel. I was hoping that they would have updated the graphics a little bit more, kind of made it more so on the lines of Streets of Rage 4, as far as like the visuals. I felt like in Streets of Rage 4, they put in a lot more effort, into it versus Ninja Turtles, which was cool, but man, the characters were so small on the screen. Gameplay was okay. It was all right, but it just didn't seem like it had that polish. So I'm hoping that with Double Dragon Revive, it'll actually have like more of that, polish to it. And you can really feel the growth of the characters with special, what do you call it? Like the specials that they'll be able to pull off, the special moves and whatnot. But we'll see though, man. We'll see. Golly, so many beat 'em ups, man. Thinking about Final Fight from back in the day. Dang, man, so many classics. But I will see what happens with this, because I just remember at one point in time, that's all we were rocking with back in the 90s, late 80s, early 90s. We're talking about Bad Dudes from back in the day. Ninja Gaiden, the original arcade version of Ninja Gaiden, where you had 2-player co-op. Oh man, God dog. I just really forgot how many beat 'em ups I actually truly enjoyed from back in the day. So again, this is one of the oldest genres inside of gaming, and to see two of the OGs, the triple OGs, making a comeback in a very good way, because this trailer looks very promising, like they could have something, and I'm just hoping for the very, very best when it comes to this game. But let's go ahead, man. I have gushed long enough about beat 'em ups and Double Dragon. We're gonna get into the final story for this week, and it actually came courtesy of Screen Rant. So now this is the thing. I will say Starfield may have started out shaky. Man, good grief, shakier than a politician. But it continues to get better and better, because courtesy of the creations tool, Starfield players on Xbox can now access popular Star Wars mods such as the N1, the Millennium Falcon, and the X-Wing. But the great news doesn't end there, because modder Bill Jones, who is responsible for these Star Wars mods to begin with, is working on a full Star Wars conversion mod that will be available on Xbox and PC. Now, the thing that makes this conversion mod so exciting is Bill Jones is promising the conversion mod will introduce new quests and stories that will blend the lore of Starfield and Star Wars together. But Bill has not mentioned when that will happen. But he did mention that if you're interested in the project, show your support for the add-ons development. Man, can you imagine? God, dog. Now, Starfield, this is another game that when I get a Series X, I am really, really interested in playing. But just the fact that you can get some of these Star Wars mods into the game already, the Millennium Falcon and N1 and the X-Wing, I'm like, yeah, dog, and this guy's going to try. Now, this is the thing. When I was reading the article, because again, I haven't played Starfield. I don't have a Series X or anything like that, so I can't really talk personally about the game. I can only go off of what I read and what videos I look at, what the people say inside of the videos. But he did say, the article did mention that he doesn't quite know how Bill Jones is going to be able to pull this off, kind of putting the Star Wars lore with Starfield, kind of blending the two together. They were, well, not they, but the article was saying that is going to be a very, very challenging task for him to be able to pull off. So they're a little skeptical on if he's going to be able to do it, in full. But nonetheless, the good news is that you can actually download these mods right now on the Xbox Series X or S, and of course on your PC when it comes down to these the X-Wing, and again, I'm not going to repeat it all over again. These different, what do you call them? Yeah, they just call them Star Wars mods. Vehicles. That's what I'm thinking of. These different vehicles. So again, Starfield, I know it still needs some more work, but they do have it up to, 60 frames a second. That's a lot of improvement with the game, being able to have access to mods, on the console as well. That's a big improvement. I know the DLC is coming out very soon, so that's excellent as well. So, again, a game that started out very shaky is starting to at least, turn that corner and actually come into its own. And that unfortunately seems like that is what's been going on at Xbox lately. I mean, we saw it if you go all the way back to Sea of Thieves. That game was very, very rough when it first came out. But as the years went on and they actually got it on track, it got better and better. But it took a very, very long time for them to actually get it to that point. So I would love for Xbox to be able to make these changes a lot faster, than they do, but the one thing is, the positive thing is that they do stay at it, as they're going through. Man, I mean, that's a double-edged sword though, because not everybody is going to stay around and wait for you to figure it out. It's just best to, when the game comes out, have it in a great standpoint when it first comes out. And then if you have improvements to make, they're so minimal or, not nearly as egregious, where people don't mind sticking around. I mean, the same thing happened with Halo Infinite. When that first came out, it was a drought when it came to the content inside of the game. And people left. People were not playing it, but eventually they got it together, got it in a much better state. So that's the one thing I really, really do believe that Xbox, they got to tighten up on, is getting things out there in a fully playable state. And I don't just mean a fully playable state, but have it out there with its best foot, being, stepping the best foot forward first. And then work on the minor things. But, speaking of that too, this is the last story, but I do want to just mention something very quickly about the Fire Stick. The Xbox Fire, well, it's not the Xbox Fire Stick, but the Amazon Fire Stick that does have Xbox on it. It has been two guys specifically that I've seen, post up, shout out to that good brother, and Doc Dark. Shout out to him as well. That good brother as well. They both were talking about their experiences when it came to the Amazon Fire Stick and talking about, how good it was. And they both said, whew, that thing needs work. It needs work. They said that the lag was just so prevalent when they were playing Forza. I think Doc Dark, he was saying he was playing Forza and it wasn't turning. It wasn't moving, at the speed that it was supposed to be moving at. The lag was just very bad. He passed the controller to his son who was playing Halo Infinite, and he was like, what's wrong with it? It's broken. He didn't say it's broken, but he was really like, it doesn't feel right. It feels bad, so, that report is out there, post up. He also said that his kids, they were having a hard time with it as well, playing Fortnite. It wasn't very responsive. He popped in Gears of War, like Gears 5 in. Well, he didn't pop it in, but, he put it on, for them to play. It was slow. It wasn't moving, one-to-one with the controller. It just wasn't a very, very good experience. It wasn't a good experience at all from what they were saying. So, again, it just goes back to, I understand that Xbox is doing everything they can. They're trying to bring more and more people in. But if this is something that you're your advertising as a way to actually play your Xbox games or play Game Pass, then you got to put your best foot forward. And I understand people can say, well, Kiaun, daggone, they just got it to market. But my point goes back to what I was saying before about Starfield and, other games, Halo, that they've released in the past, is that you got to put your best foot forward first. Because let's say some people actually do pick it up and they do want to try Xbox on it. But when they play it, it is such a horrific or horrendous, experience. They're like, man, I don't want to touch that again. I don't even want this thing. It could really leave a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths. So again, it's just so important that you put your best foot forward first and at least get some of these kinks worked out. Now, hopefully, and I'm sure Xbox already knows about these problems, so hopefully they will get this together much, much, much sooner than later, and that it can be a viable option for people to actually play, to actually get inside of the Xbox ecosystem. Because, it's one thing for sure, they are not putting an emphasis on the console at all as it stands. They're talking about everything else other than the console. PC, they get a much better break on Game Pass. They don't have to pay for it as much, not pay as much for it. And it's like, God, dog, yet again, PC gets the better deal. They never said that PC couldn't stack. I'm not saying that they can't, but they never said that PC wasn't able to stack their subscription. But console, you can only stack up to 13 months. It's just things like that, man. You're just like, golly, Xbox, you made so many great strides this year, with having one of the best shows, if not, to me, the best show that they've ever had in E3 history. And you just continue to kind of do things to undo the goodwill that you're trying to build up, So for me, again, seeing Xbox trying to sidestep the console and go into another direction, with Amazon, with the Fire Stick, I understand it's options at the end of the day. But when you're putting more of an emphasis on other things versus your console, and that other thing that you're putting the emphasis on isn't nearly performing, up to standard, then you're doing nothing but killing your brand at the end of the day. But we'll see what happens with that situation too. I'm not very interested. This is the thing. I am interested, but I'm not. I'm interested because I want to know if they're going to be able to pull it together, but I'm not interested because that's not something that I'm going to pick up to actually game on. I don't think I will. I thought about it. I did think about it though for a minute, but I'm like, nah, if I'm going to go that route, I would just see how good the Samsung TV works, before I would do something like that. But anyway, that is the end of the gaming news this week. Now, of course, this week there will be no video game theater because I'm trying to get you guys out of here. But what we're going to do is we are going to discuss the question of the week. And of course, I know you guys saw it already, but let's go over it officially. So the question is, how much are you willing to pay for Game Pass? We know that Game Pass has already went up. Well, it's going up in September 18th to $19.99. $19.99 for the ultimate. How much further are you willing to go? Will you go up to $24.99? Will you go up to $29.99? What is the ceiling for you as a Game Pass customer? Or even a person that is potentially thinking about getting into Game Pass? Because to me, the draw would be for Game Pass, the day one games. I understand they got the cheaper tier there for people that want to pay like $15 a month. I understand that is an option. But to me, the way that they advertise it, they advertise Game Pass is play all of these games on day one. That is the draw. So And that's the other thing, at that $15 a month tier, you don't even get the day one. So I'm just very, very curious to know, how much are you willing to pay for Game Pass? Me, myself, if I was a Game Pass subscriber, which I am not, and I can almost guarantee you, unless Xbox literally pushes me into a corner, that in order to get their first party games, I have to be a member of Game Pass. Unless they do that, I don't see it happening. But if the what if scenario, if they did do that, then I can tell you that my top, that I would just say, look, I will go this high, would probably be around $25. I'll give you $25 a month. But that is as high as I would be willing to go. I mean, other people have a different threshold, but that is the question. How high? How much are you willing to pay for Game Pass? I would absolutely love to hear from you guys. This is a very, very different time in gaming, man. It's really changing. Oh, man. Gaming landscape is it's not necessarily warped, but it's just very different. Having Xbox putting games on PlayStation, first party games, and PlayStation putting first party, not necessarily a first party IP, but a first party IP character onto Nintendo. I'm like, God, dog, this is like bizarro world right now. Just some of the things that we're seeing that I don't think people in my age range would have ever thought that we would get to this point. Mass layoffs happening. It's a lot of different things going on in the industry right now. God darn. But that is the question, guys. I would love to hear from you. If you do want to be a part of listener feedback, you can always email the show, and the email address is theanalogcirclepodcast@gmail.com. I was your host, Kiaun Mitchell, and thank you again for being here. Thank you, guys. Now, as always, before we wrap this thing up and put a bow on it, before we do that, always remember one thing. It is not about the consoles. It is about the game. So we will probably be doing listener feedback, I would say probably on Wednesday. Because Cody, I know you got a lot of emails that I got to read off to, my brother. I got to read them off, man. So yeah, this Wednesday, I'll make it a point to record listener feedback. And if you want to be a part of the conversation, right on in, I'll be happy, very, very happy to go over your thoughts on the show. So with that being said, until Wednesday, when we do it again, until then, you guys take care. Be safe out there. Bye-bye.